Thank you so much, and thank you for invitation. So we started with Danube, with big river, and yeah, I would like to present on the barriers that are being removed in Europe and how the, let's say, the evolution of last 10 years, how it came to this, and how also the whole narrative has changed. I remember it was probably 2019. I went with Slovenian delegation. I'm from Slovenia. We went to Estonia to a dam removal conference, and it sounded, you know, wow. We went there and they were showing the cases. They just removed the big dam on Parno River, and we thought, you know, we go home, but what do we do with this information? We're not going to remove any of big dams in Slovenia. They're all operational. They're all very safe. They have all the regular checks, and we need that electricity. So for us, that was very much, okay, thank you very much for information, but we cannot apply this at home. But then throughout the years, it has changed, and a lot of barriers are being removed, but mainly on a smaller streams, and then that's where it starts. So in my presentation, we'll go through how it all started and what's the magnitude of the problem. We're gonna look into, yeah, barriers can be removed, but then again with the why and how, which barriers, you know, some prioritizations, and we'll also look into example of barrier removals from around Europe. And you'll see that those are much more, let's say, feasible and also relatable cases for all of us than, let's say, we're going to remove Iron Gate. Of course, that's not going to happen. So it wasn't until 2018, till the research project Amber, it was only known that in Europe we have around 7,000 big dams for water storage and hydropower. That was ICOLD database. But the researchers who were looking into decline of fish populations were saying, yeah, but this cannot be the whole picture. And that's why they decided to look into national inventories, into regional inventories, and try to collect all the data about barriers in rivers. And this was more of a picture they got. So they were looking into hydrotechnical structures like dams, weirs, sluices, culverts, gates, rock ramps. So, you know, the scale was much, much different. And you'll see that for some countries, even Slovakia, we don't have in this Amber database a lot of information. For example, Croatia is also just a handful of dots, but I was in contact with them last month, and they said, yeah, now we managed to collect all the data on our end. So that was a database of road authorities, so culverts, for example, our Croatian water database, and also of some research projects, and we have a little bit more than 13,000, you know, so their picture would also look much different once this is updated, and I believe that for Slovakia, you probably have a bit more than that. So it's really about collecting all the data and looking at the scale of the magnitude of this project. So in the Amber barrier database, they found 630,000 barriers, but out of that they estimated the obsolete ones based on the river basin they closely inspected. But the estimate was that, you know, even that picture is probably not the correct one. So their estimate was that we are looking about 1.2 million barriers in European rivers. So, and what I would now call the, let's say, third wave. Now, also for the nature restoration law, we have a lot of let's say, field research, and there's also some smaller project funded by Open Rivers project, where we really look into river basins, people go in the field, and what I'm hearing, especially from, let's say, our southeastern Balkan countries, is that, you know, So there's like 30% of the barriers we found are in the inventory. Maybe they are not exactly the type that is in the inventory, but we found a lot of other infrastructure in the river. So probably it's really that 1.2 million realistic, if not even more. So we have better and better data on the fragmentation of the streams. We are still dealing with a lot of misconceptions when it comes to barriers, and especially if you look at, if you talk to the general public. One of them is that all barriers have a function, which we know that certain infrastructure is at this point obsolete. Maybe old weirs that were there installed for the mills. Mills are no longer operational or even not there, or for some companies that once worked and used the water from the stream. That all dams and all the barriers are flood control, which is also not true, and you know that more than I. That the removing dam will dry up the river, or the dam or the weir is actually a waterfall. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, because the communication of how rivers function and the transport of the sediments, the nutrients, the connectivity with the floodplain, we don't really teach that much to the children and to general public, so that when some disaster happens, it's really hard to explain how and why, and let's say the domino effect of all the activities we did in the rivers, and how in a changing climate, infrastructure built 100 years ago might not be suitable for extreme events that happens these days. I don't know why this shows so differently, but reasons for removal of the barriers. So there's no specific orders, it's really case by case, but here I've listed economic, safety, and environment. So economic, let's say this part of Europe, we don't, in some cases we do have privately owned barriers. So if I would inherit an old company that used the dam to divert water, and then I also inherit the barrier, then it would be my liability if something goes wrong with the barrier and we flood downstream or upstream. I would need to have a really good insurance to go through it, but it's not the case. A lot of infrastructure is state-owned. So in some cases, in countries where there are private owners of barriers, a lot of those are, especially those not in use, are being removed also to reduce this liability in case of dam failure. Safety reasons, same thing. If we don't have maintenance of these small barriers, for the large dams, we all know that they are maintained, they have very strict rules, but it's these small infrastructures that sometimes we don't even know we have in rivers. And environmental reasons, fish migration, that's restoration of natural flow. There's a lot of project focusing on that. So, throughout Europe, we have projects that prioritize, let's say, one of the three more over others, but it's no particular, let's say, order as I've listed them here. Annually, we have around 500 removals in Europe per year. We say dam removal progress report, but then again, we're talking about a lot of different hydrotechnical structures that are being removed. And per type, last year, it was 45% of those removed were culverts. And that's also a predominant type of riverine barriers in European rivers. The next, with 43%, were weirs. Only 8% of those were actually dams, and 4% was others. Also, to look at the scale of how big those structures are, 65% below 2 meters. So we are really talking about small infrastructure a bit more than a third, 2 to 5 meters, and above 5 meters, only 1%. Slovakia, total, here I have some total numbers from the region. Slovakia has 9, Poland 10, so you're on the top of the countries removing barriers in the region. Yeah, let's go into examples so that you see what's been removed, let's say. In Portugal, a typical case, old mill, was water diversion for the milling operation. Mill is obsolete, doesn't work anymore, they've removed it. Again, height 1 meter. It's really not a big structure, let's say. Next one is from Germany. It's under train track. You know, when they built the railway, they needed to strengthen the river. Then there's also this barrier. Didn't serve any purpose. They removed it. Sometimes you'll see there will be a lot of fish species that they targeted and freshwater species with such project. Let's say in this one, it was really about improvement of environment and fish species, while in others, you'll see that it's other priorities, let's say. So this one is from France, again, obsolete for 10 years, in poor condition. They decided to remove it for the benefits of nature. Another one from Portugal in a protected area, culvert. The problem was flash floods, and this was blocking the sediment, and a lot of, I mean, the road got blocked with debris, so they removed it. Then we have one from Scotland, again, industrial heritage in UK. There's a lot of infrastructure like that. There was a cotton and paper mill, long gone, structures was still there. So that's what it's usually removed. Then we have a case from urban area. This is from Luxembourg. The Petrus Valley, as you see, completely concrete riverbed. Fish species that they listed that came back after the removal, it's ducks. So again, the river, that was the let's say, nature was not the priority to be saved, let's say, in this case, but it was really trying to get a more natural stream. This, as did I mention, it's a UNESCO protected area, so this is, let's say, more difficult removal than obsolete barrier in the middle of nowhere. But it can be done. Then Hučava from Slovakia, that's was going to be presented by Mira later. And then every now and then we have one of those wow projects. So Hitolanjoki River in Finland so it flows from Finland and goes to a lake in Russia, and the species that is there, let's say the flagship one, is a landlocked salmon. There were 3 operational hydropowers on the side of the Finland. In Russia, they already removed barriers in the 90s, so it was up to Finnish to remove those 3 operational hydropower plants. So this is one of the, let's say, rare cases where it's outweighed the benefits of nature versus production of electricity. But here calculation, so it was 3 dams in total. The region is southeast of Finland. It's a remote region, not very developed, but after this project was done, people started to come and see it. You know, in Finland, every 5th person would identify themselves as an angler, and those who don't practice it regularly, they have very fond memories of going fishing with their grandparents or doing it in the summer huts in summer season. So for them, this was very, let's say, also emotional project. And they removed it. The region is flourishing with tourism now as an alternative. And yeah, a lot of money went into it. The hydropower, the electricity will come now from other sources, but this was, let's say, prioritized in their case. It really goes case by case. Another one that, let's say, is interesting or a special case to mention is Riera de Calders in Spain. And this barrier was actually chosen to be removed for a research project on methane emissions from accumulation that is completely filled with sediment. So here the focus was not the fish species, the focus was really how much this particular situation emits in a year, and after the removal, how let's say, if we improve the climate situation. And it was, the decrease was for 10 folds, and then they tried to estimate if we have, let's say, if the percentage of the barriers we have in Europe are in this condition, because, you know, not all the reservoirs are filled with the sediments that would necessarily emit methane. So it really, they said, okay, look, barrier removal can also be a climate action in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. And this is after, yeah. In Montenegro, a very, let's say, usual case, illegal barriers, water diversion to fish ponds. Fish ponds never happened, but the barriers were still there. So we have also such projects. Then in protected area in Croatia, in Plitvice National Park, culverts, obsolete diversions, mills, 8 barriers, they removed them last year. In Kriva in North Macedonia, that was in August this year, again, dysfunctional barriers. That's mostly what's been removed. Yeah, where to start? I think you know already that. You've done it really well a couple of times. So it's really defining the terms. We're not removing big hydropower, operational hydropower. Identification of barriers. Which one goes out? Plan well. Include stakeholders. Inform public. Yeah, and monitoring. That's probably also very, very crucial. ORP is one of the mechanisms you can apply for grants, but it's not the only one. I've seen a lot of barriers being removed with European Regional Development Fund, with Marine and Fisheries Fund, with cohesion funds as well. So also with the nature restoration legislation, for that mechanism will also be available funds for barrier removal and river restoration. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and yeah, looking forward for some questions later on. Thank you.